of a past president would become property of the government and kept in the archives. That seems like a dinky little law, and there's been discussion for over a year apparently between the Trump camp and the archives folks trying to get some documents, and there's been considerable cooperation. And earlier this year, Trump apparently gave 13 to 15 boxes to the archives, but apparently the warrant had to do with that. So we're all thinking that's such a minuscule, silly law. It's not even a criminal law. Why would that necessitate a warrant for search and a raid? And I'm thinking, well, maybe their thinking was, maybe we don't have it, but hey, if we can get there, then if we happen to see something in plain view as we go through the house, then we can take things in plain view that might be relevant to another proceeding. And also, anytime they do this, there's an opportunity for talking to people where maybe they can get statements. And again, if Trump were there himself, they would hope he would talk and get him in a perjury trap. He was not there, so that one will not unfold. Another thing that's going on is that Donald Trump is being pursued by the state of New York in connection with taxes. This has been going on for about 3 or 4 years. And 2 days ago, he was deposed in New York. That may be why he was in New York instead of Florida. He apparently testified for about 6 hours and took the Fifth Amendment multiple times. Now, a lot of people would say, well, if you don't have anything to hide, why are you taking the Fifth? Well, I'll tell you, after what I've seen, man, anything close, I would take the Fifth. I would decline to testify all I could, because I've seen how they abuse this. Let them come up with their own evidence, and because they will use whatever you say against you, and sometimes they intentionally ask you false questions to try to entrap you. So I'm very concerned. You like to have faith in your Department of Justice. Right now, I do not. And so we'll see whether Trump has something to hide. I mean, if in fact Trump has done something bad, and then, he'll pay the price, and we'll see. But this thing has been going on for 4 years. They keep coming up with accusations, and they turn out to be to crumble. This has happened a dozen times. So we'll see what happens here. Okay, just a couple of other points. I want to make a comment on Judge Reinhardt, who signed off on the search warrant. And it has come to light, of course, that he recently recused himself in another case where Trump was involved. And this judge has openly, notoriously, and frequently strongly criticized Trump. And for him to not have recused himself is wrong. And this guy is supposed to be impartial, and he has already shown his extreme dislike of Trump, so much so that he should have recused himself. And this may, one of the things I'm guessing might happen here is if there are certain serious violations of the law in connection with this warrant, that if they do find something, it may be excluded under the exclusionary rule. Now, a couple of other things. This search, this raid came from the Department of Justice in Washington, D.C. Some people are very suspect about that. That makes sense because that's where the archives is, and so it would logically and properly come from there. And that's kind of too bad for Trump, but he's kind of stuck with that. If there's a jury trial in D.C., he's probably not going to get a sympathetic jury. So he doesn't have that in his favor. But still, based on the conservatives that have a majority in the Supreme Court, any conviction of Trump on something related to this would be scrutinized, and it would have to be solid, I think, or else the Supreme Court would strike it down, because they're aware of all these issues also. Now, another issue here, again, I think I mentioned this earlier, but the seeking of a search warrant is basically a last resort and should only be sought if there's some urgency why a subpoena wouldn't be adequate. And I can't see what the urgency would be in this case. There doesn't seem to be something that's about to be destroyed. Now, another thing that's been reported is that there was a mole, so to speak, in Trump's house down there that was feeding information to the government and making them think that there might be something there to get in a search. So that's interesting. Trump has had people who betrayed him like this throughout his administration. Another thing that's going on here is just a week or so ago, President Trump sent a 282-page letter to CNN as he is threatening to sue them for defamation. And now that's interesting, and the defamation relates to what happened on January 6th. I've thought that was fascinating. I'm not sure that he will prevail. It is very difficult to win a defamation suit. And the law for this varies from state to state. So in Maryland, I have an idea what it is, and I've handled defamation cases in Maryland. Defamation means someone states something that's not true, and they do it on purpose, and it covers either someone's business or profession, whether the person has a loathsome disease, whether the person is unchaste, or whether the person has committed a crime. So if the newspaper or news company CNN had accused Trump of sedition and insurrection, which is a crime, and there's no basis for it, Trump may be saying, even though I am a public figure, you know there's no basis for this, and you did it anyway. And therefore, he may be trying to make the case of defamation. That would be hard to do, but whether or not he succeeds by doing this publication and putting out there this information in this 282-page letter, he is presenting the evidence that supports his view of why there were different mistakes and some fraud and some irregularities in the election, and his basis for thinking that he should have been elected in different states. So by doing this, he's kind of responding to the January 6th committee indirectly, and he's putting out there the information, because some of the reporting about Trump by the liberal media has been totally false. For example, they would say there is absolutely no evidence of fraud in the elections. Well, that's not true. There was a lot of fraud. Now, whether there is substantial fraud is another question. And was he trying to overturn the election? No, that's a mischaracterization of what he was doing, because in fact, he was trying to get Congress to delay certifying the votes so he could check out these other places. And that is a far cry from insurrection. So he's making his case indirectly, and so that's going on. Another thing that needs to be mentioned is the day after the raid on the complex in Florida, Representative Scott Perry, Republican from Pennsylvania, who had just filed articles of impeachment against Attorney General Garland, was confronted by the FBI in the morning, and they took his personal cell phone. He doesn't understand why, he doesn't understand the basis for this, and we have yet to find out the basis for this. That is another thing that's going on here. Why? Why taking a congressman's phone? What is the urgency? I mean, I would like to get the bottom of that. And that is almost kind of eclipsed by everything else that's going on. But that is a real big deal. How can the government come and take someone's phone without giving the person a reason for why they're doing that? That is very disturbing to me. So with all these things going on, you can understand why the raid of the Trump compound in Florida has infuriated half the nation, while the other half seems to be rejoicing. But it demonstrates there's a serious problem in America. Are we going to be a banana republic or not? And if there were abuses, as it seems to me there could very well be, then there needs to be a cleaning of house. And Attorney Garland and FBI Director Wray will have to go. there better be really strong stuff, or they should be out of here. And I have no doubt they will be impeached if there isn't strong evidence against Trump. Well, that concludes our discussion today. There will be more of this. This is a very important issue, so we'll talk about it more later. So thank you for joining us. Remember that the liberties we enjoy in America can be maintained only when its citizens are both moral and informed participants in the democratic processes. The closing argument helps us to do this. We'll see you next time. This is Paul Smith.